Hey, this is part one of two. I had a fantastic time talking with Want2Mess, and it went a little bit long. He was helping me build my arena team, which was super cool. I am going to have a game on video link down below in the comment and description of this video, just going over the three champions that we really worked on today, so you can see their builds in full on there if you'd like to do that. But this is a great interview. This part two is actually going to be on Want2Mess's channel. That's also going to be linked down in the description and comment of this video, so please check that out. We had a really good time, and he gives so much awesome information. You guys definitely don't want to miss it. Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video, and I am blessed to have with me a wonderful guest. I think you all are going to really enjoy him. The one, the only Mr. Want2Mess. He is a platinum winner, finished first. How many times? Just once or multiple?
Just the one so far. I keep trying every week to get another one.
But you will see him at the top of Plat week in and week out. He's one of the best arena players in Raid. And I asked him to come today, and basically I asked for a little help. I asked for some free work to be done, and he graciously agreed. So if you guys will all make sure to go over and subscribe to his YouTube account, definitely give him a follow on Twitch. He's a wonderful streamer, and he's on there like it seems like almost every single day. But he is fantastic and has a lot of knowledge in this game. Is very patient about explaining stuff too, which is really good. He'll flame you if you're being dumb, but he's very. I feel like that's appropriate though. I do the same thing. But he's just a wonderful guy.
It's unintentional, I promise.
But he's a wonderful guy, really nice. I'm really happy to have you on. Thanks, Want2Mess, for coming in today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, as you said, I stream Twitch. I've been a little bit inactive on YouTube due to some issues with Playerman, my client, but I'm all good to go now. Got my stuff back, so I'm ready to get back into it, start doing some good arena YouTube content. Happy to be here, happy to talk about arena and help out fellow content creators. So thank you.
Well, much appreciated on my end. So I asked Want2Mess to come by because I've been pretty competitive in arena. I've finished in plat a couple times at the bottom end, but I've gotten up there. And the thing is, I would like to push high. I'd like to try and go deeper into that part of the game. But even though I have I think a very fast Siphi as my speed champion, I often get outsped, especially when you start going into the platinum arena. My defense gets hit a fair amount. And so one of the things I was hoping is that, or I asked Want2Mess to come on and help me with, is creating a go second team. I know there's a lot of people out there that struggle getting the speed on their lead champions, and so a go second team is a viable option, especially with the variety of champs I think that we have now. And so I thought, who better to ask than Want2Mess to kind of walk us through the process of that and how you go about that. And so we're gonna have a little bit of conversation, and then we're gonna actually try and build me a go second team, so maybe I can do a little better in the future. And so yeah, Want2Mess, I figured kind of to start, just like what are the things that you were looking for, like the like the base kind of stats or champions you're looking for in a go second team?
There's not so much base stats that you're looking for, but when you're looking for champions that can come together and work as a go second team, what you want is, if you're expecting somebody to be faster than you, you want someone who can disrupt the enemy team in some way, shape, or form, right? Because if someone's running a speed team of some kind on their defense for arena, you should, not that everybody will, but you should assume that they're speed tuned, right? You should assume that their team is properly speed tuned, and that their team will, maybe not necessarily, if it's like a stall defense, they won't necessarily kill you, but it might stall you out, take forever for you to recover, come back and win, or they might just nuke you if they have a nuker on there. So what you need to do is you need to cut in on their speed, and then stop them. You need to debuff them, you need to strip off their buffs, or stop them before they even go before you, which is one very specific champion. We'll talk about him.
Sure.
But basically, you're looking for disruption of some kind. You need to cut in and stop them, and then your team will go and do something.
Got you. When you talk about disrupting, it doesn't. I mean, like in my experience, there's not a ton of champions that can do that. So, is arena? I mean, maybe than any other area of the game, it seems like it's a very specific champion oriented builds that you're making, where you're constructing builds either around certain champions or you need certain champions in order to make some of these teams function. Does that sound right?
At the Yes, essentially the answer is yes. You can't just throw four random champions in and expect to contend with someone's proper speed team. You need to think about what you need to do to cut in on them or stop them or disrupt them. And at the very top, at the very high level of Arena, there are only a small handful of people that do it well enough is the key thing. There are plenty of champions that can work on a Go Second team depending on your gear and what you can pull together, but to do it the best, it's only a couple of them. So
okay, that makes sense. So because I know at the top end of Plat, everybody's always talking about like the same 5 or 6 champions. It seems like
yeah, admittedly we're in not too fun of a meta right now, where especially with the AI changes that just were implemented, essentially speed Warlord, some kind of a faster team using Warlord is like 75% of the Platinum meta right now. If you or like the excuse me, the upper Platinum meta.
Sure.
So finding a way to cut in on that and stop them is very difficult to do because people have very good gear. Specific champions work really well. Warlord is just if Warlord takes a turn against you,
it's over.
You can recover, but it's going to take you forever, or you might even just be better backing out. So.
Gotcha. But you said you can do one of these types of teams at lower levels too. Like what's kind of the? I mean, because I know most of my viewers aren't competing for platinum. Obviously, there's only 300 people that finish, right? But so like how if you're like a lower level player, what are the kind of like how do you go about really building that kind of a Go Second team?
So if we're talking at the lower level, let's just say 4 and below, what you want to do for a Go Second team is you want to pick 4 champions. You need to still have some kind of a win condition, so you still need some kind of a damage dealer. What I like to do is I like to have some kind of a champion that can cleanse debuffs, some kind of a champion that has a very high health or is very synergistic with a shield set. And then the other 2 champions one of them needs to be some kind of damage dealer, unless you want to be stuck in like a 5+ minute fight. That's not the point. That's not what we want. And then the 4th slot can usually be pretty flexible. You generally want some kind of a champion that can either bolster your own team, debuff the enemy team, possibly strip buffs off of them if they have like a Siphi or something like that puts a lot of buffs on their own team. So that's kind of what you're looking for at the lower level. And specifically what you want to look for is people who are running speed teams on their defense, but they don't have a buff stripper. That's what we're looking for at the lower level, which a lot of people do. With the AI changes, it's a lot more common to be running Madam on their defense now, but there are still plenty of people. I see Blender defense all the time. Blender's a terrible defense. If you guys are anywhere in Arena, anywhere, please do not run Blender as a defense. Blender, people just run speed teams that just have like double nuke. People just run like random mishmash of strong champions. A Go Second team is a good way to handle any of these teams.
Okay. So, I mean, I think that's fair though. The Madame Saris part of it, if you don't have her, I'm sure there's somebody else at the epic level or lower that can strip buffs off enemies, but I don't see any of them in Arena generally outside of Madame Saris. So I think for the lower level Arena stuff, you're right. Like if you don't have her, you're not stripping buffs, and that means there's a fair amount of teams that are running without that. So that's interesting that that's what you're avoiding, and I think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, the thing is that you just need to avoid that strip because if someone just has raw damage, you can tank raw damage to an extent, of course.
Of course.
If someone is if someone's sitting in gold 4 with a high damage team and maybe they belong up in platinum, maybe they just haven't pushed you early, maybe you might still get nuked depending on your own team. But there are a lot of different champions. There's a lot of different ways to build a Go Second team that can just handle a nuke.
hmm It's funny, when I first started playing, I hated Arena. I hated Arena. I
Oh,
was like,
really?
oh my
Yeah.
god, it's so bad. Like my Great Hall is not like for the length of time I've played and the level of my account, my Great Hall is not overly impressive. But it's funny
No, it's pretty
because
respectable.
it's okay. It's okay right now, right?
Yeah.
But I put in
Yeah.
a lot of work over this last year. I put in a lot of work. My first year, not as much. But what's interesting about that though is as my account's grown, as I've gotten farther along, as I've gotten more champions, and more variety of champions have kind of come into the game, I found it a lot more enjoyable because there's a lot more strategies that I can use. And to me, that's the enjoyable part about this game, right? It's like, how do I mix and mash these skills to make them work in a unique way? In fact, let me
Who
show
would have
you.
thought a champion collection game? The more champions you have, the more options you have, the more fun the game is.
That's
Whoa.
weird. That's weird, right? Actually, I want to show you kind of my one of my defenses here because I just put it together because I have it's always gear I'm lacking, not the champs.
Right.
But
Let's take a look.
I put together this team because I thought it would be a
Okay.
fun way. I love Claude. As soon as he came out, I said this guy's going to be great. He's fast based speed. He gives you speed buff. He gives you the increased accuracy buff, which is so it's really powerful. I think in arena. And then I finally got a Shazar, so I was like, well, I can use him as a lead. He's got a wonderful best speed aura in the game. And so I kind of created this weird mishmash of a team. It's not if you guys are don't build this team. It's not like a meta team. This is just kind of a fun team I put together. But the point is though, I was like, okay, let me try and use these skills. So I can have Astralon do damage but have less accuracy because of the increased accuracy buff from Claude. Same thing here with Shazar, right? And I have Liddy in there, but honestly, probably not the best choice to have with this team. But the idea was I was able to put that kind of fun team together. I've had a lot of success using my double Coronar
Oh
team.
God, you and your coronars.
They're the best. They're so much fun. It's such a great troll team, right? Even when I did push for plat, people avoided me more often than I thought. Like I didn't get hit every single time, which I'll be honest, I'm surprised by. I expect people to look at that team and go, easy win, let me hit it. But it didn't happen all that often. I was kind of shocked by
Was
that.
it
But
this exact team? Was it?
yeah.
Oh gosh.
Want2Mess is drooling right now. He's like, oh, please push for flat with this.
I would instantly hit that team.
Yeah, I know. But that to me is always the enjoyable part, right? The randomness, trying different champions, trying different approaches to this stuff, and that's why this go second idea kind of came to me. Is like, well, I can't outspeed everybody, and I maybe this is a good time we can start looking at some of the champions that I do have available.
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely want to make this a video where we talk about things that can apply to everybody, and I think the stuff we're going to talk about, even when we talk about my specific champs, should apply to everyone, regardless of what you're building. But obviously, with arena, specific champions matter, and they matter a lot. So let me move you over here so we can all see the stats too. There we go. So I have my Siffy here.
Good buddy up.
We get close. It's fine. She's like 352 speed, right? And I'm like, this is fast. This is a very fast Siffy. But your Siffy runs at what, like 390?
387 right now.
387, right?
Yep.
So obviously, I'm not able to compete in the speed meta with all the top 300 players that fill platinum up. Not to mention probably the extra 300 that are competing for it. So
easily extra 300.
easily, right? Like maybe it's I don't know, a couple thousand perhaps. But the idea is though, like I'll be fast, but not always the fastest, and so I need an option when I'm not always the fastest, and kind of figure out what can I do in that situation. I mean, obviously, I need a lot of work. I need a better defense than my double coronars too. But I thought this would be a good opportunity. So maybe you can kind of walk through. Obviously, this is my account. We've talked a little bit already about some of the champions we were thinking about using, and maybe you can kind of give us a quick overview of like maybe some of the ones that are super key at this level of the game when we're talking about platinum arena.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking high level platinum arena. Probably the best or most well known disruptor has got to be Hegemon, right? He automatically goes first, depending on what speed you run him, because the faster Hegemon goes before the other Hegemon. But I see a lot of people, and this still happens. I see a lot of people using hegemon the wrong way. We can go a little bit more in depth in that later, but I'd love to talk about it. Um,
Is this an example of doing it the wrong way?
yes, yes, yes. That is the super duper wrong way. Um,
I'm very comfortable with not being perfect at this game. We all have to be. But this is the fun part about this. Let's learn about it. Let's figure out what are the things. This is why I brought an expert on to help us out here. So yeah, no, but please educate us. Like, how is this the wrong way building a hegemon? Is it the
so
speed?
basically,
Is it the
well,
accuracy? Like, what's the kind of thing where we're doing wrong?
it's actually the damage.
Mm.
So so obviously hegemon can be built a few different ways. There are plenty of people who build a nuke hegemon where nuke hegemon is great. He's more so, the more hegemons you have, the more viable nuke becomes, because if you can have 2, 3, some people even run 4 hegemons, if they can all go before the enemy team ever takes a turn, if they're all nuke and built well, you can most likely kill a team. Obviously, defenses today are built with that in mind. Of some people have, the most I've seen on an account is 6 hegemons, which obviously you can't even put 6 into a team. But
Okay.
so damage works if you have more of them. But if we're talking about going second, which if you can just kill them, sure, great. But if we're talking about a more accuracy-based hegemon, we want to have our specifically our crit rate as low as possible. Now, so we want crit rate, high accuracy, and then speed is always good on this champion for this build. And then you can have some attack, but realistically, I'd like to keep it low in case you only have one hegemon and you're also running him on your defense. So the reason why you want low crit rate, you want him to be at his base crit rate, 15%. And the reason for that is when you're using hegemon on offense,
it's the
to
masteries.
slow somebody else down, it's the masteries. This game has ridiculous masteries that don't make any sense. These masteries are so strong, and specifically the mastery we're going to look at is in the defense tree, and it's called Cycle of Revenge.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yep. If you hit somebody and on the enemy team and you crit them, somebody who has this mastery on the enemy team has a 50% chance of increasing their own turn meter by 15%. And this can happen per hit that your champion does. So Hegemon has a 2-hit A1. You target one person, then it hits somebody at random. So you want his crit rate as low as possible, because what we're doing with Hegemon is we're trying to slow them down. Mm-hmm. So the other super important mastery that we take with our Hegemon is the Evil Eye mastery. So that's over in the support tree. The eye
this
one.
That's one. Yes.
So basically what this does is when you target somebody with your default skill, your A1, you can reduce their turn meter, and Hegemon's is 2 individual hits. So each one procs the 20% rather than the 5% of an AoE. So Hegemon, always going first, you open up with his A1 instead of his A2. You target their fastest champion, you slow them down with Evil Eye, and then your speed booster or whatever else you're trying to do with your team, you should be, or you would hope that you're fast enough that you go, you cut in, and then you kill them.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, and give the viewers kind of an understanding of how powerful these masteries are when used correctly. You get the enemy gets a 15% turn meter boost if you crit on them, like we were talking about.
Right.
If you think about it, that 15% turn meter boost is the same turn meter boost that you get from a Deacon Armstrong, right? That is enough. If Deacon Armstrong goes first and he gets that boost, that's enough for your entire team to just go, and if you speed tune him correctly. So that's a very significant amount. This is actually more of a turn meter boost than you get from a Siffy. It's very
10%.
Yeah, because you're only trying to go first, that extra 10% can mean that you're taking one less tick to take your turn. It can be completely the difference between going first and not going at all, quite frankly. So that makes a lot of sense. And in the reverse, this Evil Eye being able to take away 20% turn meter, I mean, that basically will take somebody, that basically erases one full tick of champions by doing that. So that's an incredible amount of turn meter reduction and can be really, really strong. I've used this to some extent in my team currently to try to
Right.
counter that. But obviously, my team was not. I don't I don't have as much experience as you, so I had crit rate on my hegemon, and
Yeah, you are 100% crit rate. So
yeah,
realistically, when you're 100%, when you're crit capped like this, um, you're reducing their turn meter by 20% with your evil eye, but you have such a high chance for that other mastery to proc and then they boost 15 that you're almost negating it. It's just like,
yeah, yeah.
so
That
a build
makes
like this with that function, I, I'm not saying it doesn't work, but that it has a high chance of being significantly less effective than it can be.
I'm gonna go ahead and say it doesn't work. It definitely doesn't work the way it should.
I
So I'll
mean,
save you
yeah,
that.
yeah,
No, that makes total sense to me. It's something I never would have thought. Like, who builds a champion without crit rate these days? Like, everybody has crit rate, but that makes total
yeah.
sense. And like, this is the kind of insight we brought you in here for today, Mister
Right, that's what I'm
Want2Mess.
here for.
All right, great. So Hegemon, definitely one of those champions that is meta throughout the arena, any level.
Mhm.
That's a great one. What are some of the other champions we should be looking out for?
I'd say the
Um,
other premier one is definitely a Valkyrie, so down a little bit.
I was fortunate I have pulled two of them, so this is great because it allows me to keep one for clan boss, and then we can build the other one for arena here. And I think this is something that we're kind of planning on doing here. But these are the
Right.
two preeminent Go second champions, correct? Hegemon and
Yes,
Valkyrie.
yes, yep. So
Okay.
if we look at Valkyrie's skills, specifically her passive, and then also the A1, but that's a little bit afterwards.
Okay.
So her own turn meter is increased by 10% each time an enemy receives or an enemy places a buff. And enemy champions will have their turn meters decreased by 10% each buff they receive. So against any speed champ, any booster, she will work, but she is extremely effective against Sifi. Sifi puts up, I
Mm,
believe, 3 buffs at a time on all members.
she does. She
Um,
does. I'm very familiar with that.
so Valkyrie gets this. Valkyrie gets a massive turn meter boost herself, and then she is reducing the turn meter of the entire enemy team, assuming you pass the accuracy check. You don't need accuracy, obviously, for her own turn meter to be boosted, but to reduce it on the enemy team, you definitely need that accuracy. And then if we look at her A1, this is why she pairs so well in Arena. So a lot of people don't really know this about her A1, but if you read the second part of it, decreases turn meter by 10% on each hit if the target has any buffs. Obviously, Arena is all about buffs, debuffs. If somebody's going faster than you, they're almost always going to be buffing their own team up with their fastest champion.
Yep.
So she gets all this turn meter, she cuts in on the enemy team, and then instead of using her very powerful shield ability, we usually actually A1 somebody. Because
Oh,
then we're going to
interesting.
A1 them. Her own ability drops turn meter, but then we also run Evil Eye on her. So we're dropping 10% on each hit of this with
Oh,
20% from Evil Eye. So a lot of people run
yeah.
like a double booster on their defense team. I guess it's a little bit less common now, but it's usually one booster into like a warlord or like a double boost with an arbiter or Sifi into Kaimar, something like that. And so what we're trying to do is we want to slow down that second person even more than we already have.
Gotcha.
So the passive takes effect, and then we use her A1 on their second fastest champion, and then our team should cut in, take over, and win.
That's great. I mean, it's so key. You only have four champions, right? So every one
Right.
of them is bringing something crucial to your strategy, and so just knocking one of them out of the fight or knocking them out of tune can really throw off the entire enemy approach to things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's okay. Yeah, I see why she's such a meta champion. I've never been so
It's
happy to
it's
pull a second
crazy.
one.
She's so good everywhere. Early to mid game, you can run her in every dungeon. She's automatically to your clan boss team.
Yeah.
And then later on, when people start favoring those unkillable clan boss teams and you don't really need counterattack in dungeons anymore, suddenly she's this powerhouse arena champion against people who are faster than you. So it's like she's just incredible.
Yeah, I've always said she's the best champion in this game. Not necessarily because she brings everything that you want. Like that's Krisk, right? That's Siffy, but
Right.
she does everything she does is completely unique to her, and she does it at the highest level possible.
Right.
The shield, the counterattack, the turn meter reduction. It's just incredible skill. So that's really interesting. So like you can see I have mine built out in immunity gear. Is that kind of the way you would go with the
Yes,
Valkyrie?
actually, yeah. Yeah, in my opinion, for an offense-based Valkyrie, because there's offense and you can build one for on your defense, which I do think you want. Depends on your defense, but you can go a couple different builds.
Mm-hmm.
Offense Valkyrie, it's almost always immunity, unless you know for a fact you're not going to hit Torment teams. And the reason for that
Gotcha.
is she boosts her own turn meter with her passive, so she'll just get frozen by a Torment,
Yep.
and then most of the time
it
you
negates what she
need,
does.
yeah. Well, no, she'll still do her passive, but most of the time you still need that additional turn meter reduction from her A1 for your team to take over the fight. That's the additional disruption she can provide. So almost every offense Valkyrie I build, just for flexibility, you want them in immunity.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. So those are the two preeminent go second champions, right? Is there anybody else that we should really be aware of? Like if you're just, if you were building somebody else's team, whether I have them or not.
Well, to a much lesser extent, Tormund is kind of a disruption champion for fast teams.
Yes.
He does, obviously, against a Siphi, he doesn't freeze them because she puts the block debuffs first. He's just kind of an honorable mention at this point. He's kind of a gamble, right? Hegemon, you go first, you control it. Valkyrie, you choose who you attack, and as long as you pass that accuracy check, you reduce the turn meter. Versus Tormund is just straight up random, right? Mm-hmm. He is 30% to freeze, I think.
When booked up, yes.
Yeah. So if you just get unlucky and you don't freeze anybody, suddenly the enemy team's probably going to nuke you or beat you, or the enemy team is going to work properly. Mm-hmm. So he's just an honorable mention if you happen to have him, and if you don't really have a good way to. I'm talking to like people who are watching. If you don't have a good way to hit those enemy speed teams that are faster than you, he's viable, but he's risky.
Makes sense.
Now, I would say
I used to be really scared of Tormund teams, like really scared, and then I pulled Siphi, and then now I don't.
All of a sudden,
I search them out. I'm like, oh, Tormund team, I can take them down. Yeah. Like it's very interesting how that one champion thing can really switch it out. Just getting that kind of immunity to it. I wonder if like champions we've just had 2 10-time events basically for Helior and for Riho. Are those champions that are good counters for a Tormund?
Absolutely, yeah. Any champion that can remove debuffs from your entire team, which both Helior and Riho do, they're going to be a very good option. Specifically, Riho is very good against Tormund because not only does she remove debuffs, she also puts block debuffs on your team. Mm-hmm. So then when your turn comes around, say you're running like a Madam or something on your team, if you just don't have that block debuffs, Madam might freeze herself with her own shield against Tormund.
That's true.
Specifically adding on that block debuffs that Riho and also the Void version of her. Oh, I was going to say Shaman. I can't believe I forgot.
Yes.
I touch Shaman, another champion that will remove all debuffs and then put block debuffs on your team. So her and Riho are very similar. So if you don't have a Riho, Skytouch Shaman definitely can do the job as well. Plus she has an excellent aura. Those two, they do work very well in Go Second teams. For the...
for Tormund specifically, right?
For Tormund specifically.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Excellent.
So other than those kind of three, just real quick, the ones that I wanted to showcase or talk about on your team is these are paired well with either like Hegemon or Valkyrie, but Kymar, super, super good, and also Lysandra for more like a more go second-esque approach. And the reason, I think, honestly, for Arena, I think people sleep on Lysandra so much. I actually don't have a copy of her on my account, which makes me really sad.
She's incredibly good, but her base speed is obviously lower than Arbiter's, lower than Siphi's. So.
Nope, it's the same as Arbiter.
Oh, it is the same as Arbiter.
Yeah.
Oh, but her aura isn't as good. And
it's the aura that's not quite as good.
I feel like that's why people don't use her. But she is, I think this is... I mean, I've said this. I'm pretty sure it's well known. She's the best speed champion in this game because
Oh,
not only does she
absolutely.
give you a speed buff, a 30% speed buff, but she also gives you a 30% turn meter buff, which is huge. So that's like combining Arbiter and Siphi in one speed wise. Not to
Yep,
mention, she also can decrease the enemy's turn meter by 30%, which is
exactly.
just like basically she. If your team can't resist her speed decrease, it's over at that point. Like she's gonna knock you guys to zero and take everybody else to full.
And that's why I really like her for a more go second approach
Yeah.
because a lot of the time people don't run Lysandra as their fastest champion because they can't guarantee that they'll have that accuracy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't control if you get a high elf accuracy banner. You can't control if your fastest chess piece is an accuracy main stat. You can't control your other substats when you get triple speed pieces. All that's really hard to control. But in a go second team where you can focus a lot more on her accuracy to make sure that she does reduce that turn meter,
Yeah.
she works really well because she boosts your own team and simultaneously disrupts the enemy team.
That's
Versus Kymar, he specifically disrupts the enemy team, right? He has
mm,
an AoE, he strips buffs and puts the enemy team to sleep. So that basically just cancels out the enemy team. So if you can just stop them, if you can slow them down enough for your Kymar to take a turn, he kind of takes over as the like he does the heavier lifting realistically in terms of disrupting the enemy team.
mm-hmm. I should probably
If anything, Kymar's probably the all around strongest arena champion right now, in my opinion.
really
Yep.
okay. I see him.
Specific,
I hear he's used a lot. I
yeah.
talk with a lot of the other content creators, so I'm always hearing these strategies that are going on, and I follow like 30% of the conversation. But but the idea that Kymar is, I mean, basically
I mean,
Kymar, it's a Kymar and Warlord arena right now is
oh,
basically what it's
absolutely.
about.
Yeah. I mean, because he brings that 30% aura, like you talked about. That's really important to get that extra 6%.
Yeah.
He has that all important um, AoE strip plus sleep. But then he also brings his Seal of Magic, which is a full reset for the rest of your team, which right now in Arena, especially in the Platinum level, it's all about reaction, accessories, and Swift Parry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you
Mm-hmm.
run a team without Kymar, if you're faster than them, if you have your Madam Strip and then Nuke, but the whole team procs Swift Parry, or maybe a Duchess procs Swift Parry, they revive, suddenly your team's out of juice. If
Right.
you bring Kymar in instead, you nuke Swift Parry procs, you reset, and you just nuke again. That's it's just I did similar to Lysandra. I didn't have Kymar for a very long time, but I pulled him during not his most recent 10 times, but the previous one. And I swear it feels like you're cheating in arena. Like you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm fast. I strip, I nuke, and then I just do it again. It's like it just feels like you're cheating.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. It's so interesting. Like this is the kind of conversation I love having because we're talking about strategy and it's such a different approach than you take with like Clan Boss, right? Clan Boss is
Mhm.
all about the long term, right? It's the long game. It's the sustain.
Right.
It's the
Right.
how do you get something to happen the same way every time. Whereas an arena is like, look, I'm gonna hit them once, maybe
Yeah.
twice, and then it's over. And if it's not over by then, if you're competing, you're either you're exiting out because it's taking too long, or you're probably going to lose because they've been able to survive that amount of that first wave of attacks and the second wave of attacks. So it's such a different kind of thing. Like sleep is such a terrible debuff,
Oh, it's so
except
terrible. It's so terrible.
it's horrible except in arena where it's like as long as they just don't need to take that one turn. And if you
Right.
can tune to make that happen, then you're great. And that's where that sleep comes in. And it's just perfect for it. So
It's
it's
so funny because I talk about how I really don't like the days set because sleep is just
the worst set.
terrible.
Yeah.
But when you have a champion that has 100% AOE sleep, it's like, oh man, this is amazing. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just
Yeah, it really is. It really is. 'Cause I was saying it seems like if you really want to have if you really want to have a go second team that can interrupt the enemy, you need Valkyrie, you need Hegemon, or you need Tormund. It seems like those are the three champions that you really have to have in order to interrupt anybody.
Those are the only three. Yeah. If somebody is faster than you, and if they are properly speed tuned, there is nothing you can do without those three.
So what options do you have if you don't use those three? Like, is it basically just tank it as best you can?
If you don't use those three, a go second team, you have to try to tank it. Which, if they have the only way to like, obviously there are a lot of champions who have passives and abilities and stuff, and you can use a shield set and you can try to tank. But realistically, even the champions that are the best at doing that are those crazy void legendaries, Krisk, Ursuga, Necrit, etc.
Mm-hmm.
There are some really good non-void options, like Seeker as a leader is really good for tanking.
Oh, because he has that increased defense that goes up automatically.
Right, yeah. Any champion that has a really high base health is really good in a shield set because they
Mm-hmm.
scale better with it to give your team more shields. Um, any kind of person who like increases your raw stats on your team, like Iron Brago, he just gives your team raw defense when he's in there.
So that makes your tanky
Anything
champions even tankier. The HP
exactly.
champions, you're talking like miscreated monster. I'm trying to think. Non legendary champions.
If you're talking non
What about a champion like what about champions like Vogoth? Where when they take damage,
unfortunately,
they're
Plarium actually like stealth nerfed Vogoth without telling anybody. Before Vogoth was actually he was really annoying to fight, but I liked that he worked this way. Before Vogoth used to simultaneously heal himself and your team as you guys took damage, but now Plarium changed it so you take damage first and then you heal.
yeah.
So if you just get one shot nuked, it doesn't do anything. Versus before, Vogoth could possibly save you. If you're
Mm-hmm.
going up against a team that, if you're pretty sure they're not strong enough to like outright nuke you, or if they don't have that really important like if they don't strip off your buffs, you can definitely fit Vogoth in. Because if it's more of like they might like half health you, then Vogoth can help bring you back up.
Yeah.
But I'd say he's not really at the top of my list in terms of like viable epic champions for go second teams.
Yeah. It seems kind of rough if you're not fast enough or you don't have like a really good legendary. It's kind of hard to do that next
Yeah.
level.
Unfortunately, we're back into. I mean, the game has always been like a speed meta, right?
Yeah.
Like anything in the game, you kind of want to do as fast as possible. But now, even more so in Arena, it's just especially now with the change of AI. Now that you can control exactly what your champions do, going first and your champions working correctly, it's so hard now. It's so hard to fight against
Huge.
that.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And that concludes part 1. If you want to see us build these champions, showing the build, trying them out in some runs, really getting a lot more of wonderful information and insight from Want2Mess, please go to his YouTube channel. Go to his YouTube channel where we're going to have part 2 of this video up right now, so you can check that out. I do have that linked as one of the videos at the end of this, so you can just go ahead and click on that to get there as well. I will have links to all of his stuff, his Twitch, his YouTube, down below in the comment and pinned comment and description of this video here. And check out that game on link to see the final builds that we went. I'll go over all the champions we went with in the final builds in there, so you can check that out. But yeah, you'll want to see part 2. It's a lot of really good information over there, so please go by, give him a sub. He's an awesome content creator. And yeah, till next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.